Hi, my name is Rod Khleif, and I'm the host of the Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing podcast. And every week I interview multifamily rock stars, and we talk about how they've built incredible wealth for themselves and their families through multifamily properties. So hit the like and subscribe buttons to get notified every Monday when a new episode comes out. Let's get to it. Welcome to another edition of How to Build Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing. I'm Rod Khleif, and I am thrilled that you're here. And I know you're going to get tremendous value from the dynamic woman that I'm interviewing today. Now, her name is Deepa Akula, and Deepa is in about 3,000 doors as a general partner and limited partner. 1,300 of those doors are as general partner. And she's actually partnered with somebody that I have a big affinity for, KK, and very excited to have you on the show today, Deepa.
Oh, thanks, Rod. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you for that. Well, listen, why don't you now let me say a couple more things about you. First of all, you're a civil and structural engineer in I guess the aerospace industry, or you were going to be in the aerospace industry. You're an immigrant like me. Your bio is so extensive, I didn't even want to try to attack it. So if you would just maybe go back and tell us a little bit about who you are and where you came from, and kind of bring us current, if you would.
Yeah, no, thank you. So I immigrated from India, and I came here to the University of Missouri in Columbia for my master's in mechanical and aerospace engineering. So I had a bachelor's from India in mechanical engineering, and I really wanted to be in the aerospace field. And University of Missouri had Boeing contracts and a lot of research. So I went there, and Boeing paid for my master's. So it was a free ride to college. Nice. And I was looking forward to working for them once I graduated. And I graduated in 2007. And I found out after I graduated, or right about when I was about to graduate, is that since 9/11 or after 9/11, Boeing was not hiring foreign-born engineers who did not have a green card or were citizens. And I was neither at that time. And my only options were to pack up, go back to India, or just find another job here and apply for a work visa to stay here, to add value. Sure. And I took the first job I got, and it was in civil engineering. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to take that job up and see what I can do. And I was trained in building and designing things that move, automobiles and flights. And now I had to work on structures that we preferably want to be stable, like homes and towers. So I did that. I took that up as a challenge, and I passed the professional engineering exam for civil structural engineers. So I'm a licensed professional civil structural engineer in 9 different states. And I did that for 14 years and was investing in real estate on the side. I'm an avid reader, and somehow it was a blog or a book where I read about syndications. And just started reading about them, did extensive research. I took a boot camp. It was a 3-day boot camp, and learned about syndications, and started investing on the side as I was working. And
as a passive investor, like an LP.
As a passive investor, yes, as an LP. And that's kind of how I got behind the scenes work, because PPMs, we usually don't have access to it if we don't invest.
Right.
Usually for 5 or 6
For those of you that don't know what a PPM is in a syndication, it's called a private placement memorandum. And it's the document that's meant to scare the hell out of you, because it talks about everything that can go wrong with the deal and describes the deal and describes the operators. And it's kind of the CYA document to protect an operator from investors. Really, that's a bad way to put that, but it's really to protect everybody, including the operator, and just talk about what can go wrong with the deal and describe the deal. So that's a PPM. So I'm sorry to interrupt. Please continue.
No, thank you. Thank you for that. I'm just so used to throwing out things without explaining them, and just studied the private placement memorandums and asked questions. And as I was doing,
you studied the private placement memorandums, guys. If you ever want to go to sleep, that is a fantastic document for sleep training. Is the PPM? That's really funny. That speaks to your engineering background, that you would enjoy that. Sorry to interrupt you.
Thank you. So I actually caught well, it was not a mistake, but the legal team for this particular team had called the asset management fee 2 different things in 2 different places. It was the same, but they just they just called it two different things. And I called the general partner and I go, is it the same thing, or are you guys talking about two different fees over here? And they were like, you read this? Like, nobody ever brought it up. They're like, I'm going to talk to our legal team to use the same nomenclature.
That's funny. That's funny. So you invested passively. And so what did you do to evaluate potential operators to do business with? Talk about that a little bit. Because that's really important. There are a lot of operators out there. I think there's going to be some pain in this industry coming up, and operators that have not been through a pullback, and we're heading into a pullback in a big way. And so, talk about some of the things that you did to evaluate an operator and evaluate a deal as well before you started investing actively, if you would.
Yeah, thank you. So the very first thing I want to know are who are the people behind the deal. The numbers come last, but the people and the team, the general partnership team, I want to talk to them at least a couple of times to kind of get a feel for the kind of person they are. And I want to see if they're throwing out a lot of vague numbers out there, or
a lot of what? I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. What kind of numbers?
Sorry, vague numbers.
Oh, so, vague. Got it. Vague.
Yeah,
I just didn't catch that. Got it. Okay.
Vague numbers. And also if something to see is if you are a good fit with them, because once you invest, we are logged in for 5 years or longer.
Right.
So see if we enjoy talking to them, if they're the kind of person you enjoy talking to, and ask about the track record. I usually ask about the track record, how many exits, and also if the GP team had worked together in the past and how many deals they worked together in the past. Because I had an experience as a LP where this is on my second syndication, I learned to ask this question. But on my one of the earliest syndications, the GP group they were relatively new. They all just met at a conference and said, hey, let's just start a project together. Right. And sometimes people don't work together. And that was one of the deals where there was a little bit of headbutting, and people had to say, you know what, I'm going to take a step back and we'll see how it goes. So I want to know that my GPs are not learning on my dime. Yeah. So before I invest, I find out if they work together, how did it go, and how many projects they work together. And if the general gut feeling of, do these people know what they're talking about? And do they look like they'll execute what they are suggesting in the business plan? Sure.
By the way, guys, I've got a list of questions that you can get questions to ask a general partner before investing in a syndication. If you text GP questions to 72345, we'll get this to you. It's a really nice list of questions that you should ask because there are a lot of operators that haven't been through a downturn or haven't, asset managed through a downturn. And that's going to, it's going to require very tight asset management if occupancies dip and things of that nature. And so, it's really important to know who you're going to invest your money with. And I will say one other thing. It's important to know the business. Like Deepa went to a 3-day boot camp. I've got a 2-day boot camp coming up. I don't know, this may air after that boot camp, but I do them every quarter. But why would you invest in something without at least a basic understanding of what it is? Okay. And I don't care if it's the stock market, if it's in businesses and certainly, but in real estate, you should have some basic understanding. So even if you're just going to be a passive investor, I highly encourage you to come to my boot camp and get a, really good overview of the business so that you can make, better decisions with your hard-earned money. But so now let's talk about you. So you invested passively. Now, when did you make the decision to become a GP and go for it?
So I was not even thinking about that as an option.
Right.
But I'm an engineer, and so is my spouse. My husband's an engineer too, and we love entertaining, and we would just throw parties, dinner parties to our other friends, and just in conversation, it would come up as, hey, where are you investing? And this is where I'm investing. And I had a lot of my friends wanting to invest in the deals, but these were 506B deals. So I reached out to one of the general partners.
Okay, stop. Okay, so guys, there's two types of syndications that are most common, 506B and 506C. Now, 506B is what I grew up on. It used to actually not even be, what it used to be is they used to call it the 3-touch rule. And you could only take investors that you had a relationship with and you would actually talk to at least 3 times. Now with the Dodd-Frank Act, they modified it and you need to have a substantive understanding of their substantive relationship really is what you need to have to offer a deal on a 506B on that exemption in the SEC rules for syndication. Now we also have what's called a 506C, which is what I do, okay, so that I can talk about it on my podcast. Now, a 506C, you have to be you can only take accredited investors, and accredited means you have a net worth of $1 million without your personal residence, or you make $200,000 a year as a single, with the expectation of it to continue. So you were in. Sorry, I just want to explain acronyms as you bring them up. So 506. No problem. So you're at dinner parties and you're doing 506B deals. Please continue.
506B deals, and I reached out to my general partner and I said, hey, I have my friends who are engineers working at Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and Walt Disney here in Seattle. I'm based in Seattle. And they say, okay, we can't really accept their money because we don't know them and they're your friends. Mm-hmm. And I go, okay, that's okay, but I just wanted to bring it up. And that was that. And after a few months, I got a tap on the shoulder saying, hey, you have this network. Do you want to be a GP? And
you're in the catbird seat with those connections. I will tell you, some of my most successful students are the ones that are in your backyard in Seattle and San Francisco and have the connections in the tech world, because they make a lot. Those engineers make a lot of money and they need a place to put it. So so you got the light bulb went on.
Right.
Okay.
And I was like, and this was a phone call, and I go, wait, what do you mean GP, like now? And they go, yes, right now we have the asset under contract. So it was completely random. And I still had my W-2 job. I had no intention of leaving my job at that time. Right. I really enjoyed it. I was head of engineering for a company. Right. And I was a general partner for that one. And then
what size deal and where?
It was a 272 unit.
Good size deal.
The big one. Yeah. In Houston. Houston,
nice.
Texas, south of Highlands. And I was like, okay, it was a great experience. And right after that closed, in a month or so, I get another call. So I had by that time, I had invested with 2 different GP groups. Mm-hmm. And I get a call from the other GP group saying, hey, we heard you were raising capital. You're one of our LPs. We have a deal. Do you want to work with us? So I go, oh my God, when it rains,
it pours. Right. So let me interject one thing. Those of you listening, so you can absolutely raise money for deals, but that cannot be all you do. Okay, you must play alternative roles in the syndication. You can't be a money raiser, is what it's called. The SEC doesn't allow that unless you're licensed, series licensed. So you have to play a role in the due diligence, or maybe investor relations. Although that's probably not enough. You also should play a role in the asset management, which I know you do, Deepa. But I just want to flag that for people that are listening: is that yes, you can raise money for deals and do exactly what she's doing, but you have to be ingrained in doing some of the other things, and that's very, very important. So. Right. Yeah.
Thank you. I actually neglected to mention that I was writing the investor reports for both those assets. And
nice.
I was there for doing due diligence on both those assets, and I was on asset management calls.
Yeah. So, which is great training too. I mean, it's just great experience for you to participate in all that stuff. And, when we do a deal, we have our, the whole GPT comes out, in fact, we're doing one right now in Nashville, beautiful asset, that the whole GP team came out, did the due diligence with us. Each one got assigned things to do as part of the CapEx projects, because there's pretty big renovation stuff that we're doing. And so somebody's handling the playground, somebody else is handling the garages we're building, somebody else is handling the cameras and the lighting and so on and so forth. So they're actively involved, and, they're on all the asset management calls. We record all the asset management calls, super important that you do that, and everybody plays along, and that's, participates, and that mitigates any issues there. Right. So let me ask you this: starting out in your career, doing this exciting business. I think you kind of alluded to a couple of them. The light bulb went off on the, on being an operator. But were there any other aha moments? Any epiphanies as you were doing this business?
Yeah, there were a couple that I really enjoyed that I didn't think I would.
Okay.
Because when I first got tapped on the shoulder, they were like, because we don't know what we don't know when it comes to these roles and what we enjoy until we experience it. Right. And I go, oh my God, asset management sounds like a sales gig, and I don't know, I'm an engineer, I don't know how much I enjoy. But I just had to, as I spoke to people, these are all my friends and family, because I'm not raising
asset management, I'm sorry, or investor relations?
Sorry, not investor relations, or raising
capital. Yeah. Okay, so
yeah.
you okay, and so you weren't sure you could do investor relations because you're likely possibly, you don't seem like an introvert, but many engineers and IT people are introverts, and they don't love to, but you obviously aren't, because you like to have parties and social activities. My wife doesn't. It's kind of funny. My wife is an absolute introvert, so if she could stay in her closet, she'd be thrilled. But you were still. You were still concerned about being able to communicating and drumming, okay. Yeah.
Right. How much, because that's not something I have done in the past.
Right.
I have spoken to other engineers at work.
Right.
But
there's certainly a sales component to it as well. Right. I like to call it influence rather than sales, but that's really what it is. You have to have the ability to influence.
Right. And I actually really love speaking to people and trying to figure out what they need help with and helping them out. And if a syndication is not a good fit for them, I'm happy to tell them, hey, this might not be for you.
When might it not be a good fit? Want to speak to that? Give me an example of when it's not a good fit.
Some people really want their money back faster. They want to be liquid. And if you want to be liquid, this is an illiquid asset. We are pulling all our money to buy a hard asset. And you can't just say, hey, I need my money. I found something better to invest in. That just does not happen. Right. So
that's the biggest reason typically, right?
Right.
Is the timing. Yeah.
Right. Once you do your due diligence on the front end, and once you're made a decision to invest, you're logged in. Mm-hmm. So
now I'm going to tell you this, guys, when you're doing investor relations, I will tell you, sometimes managing your investors is harder than managing the asset. And if you get somebody that's, excuse the expression, an ass, just say next, because life is too short, because you're going to be in bed with them for at least, 3 to 5 years. And just trust me on that. Don't take the money if they're not fun to communicate with. So I'm sure you agree with that, Deepa?
Oh my goodness. Yes. While raising capital, as they are interviewing us as general partners and capital raisers, we are interviewing them too. Right. See how easy they are. Some people want to invest. They say, hey, I want to invest, and it's really not worth your time. They don't want to get back to you. They're like, I want to invest, but it's hard to get a hold of them. Right. Or they ask, some people are just not worth the time and effort. And
brain damage. It's no. If they're unresponsive, if they don't do what they say they're going to do, or if they're just, sometimes they're just nasty, or they're asking the question after question after question, and some of them and redundancy sometimes. I mean, yes, they should be asking questions, but it reaches a limit at some point as well. So let's shift gears for a minute. Talk about, I call them seminars. I don't call them failures, but talk about a seminar that you may have had, maybe not a failure, but a setback, you got your nose bloodied in this, specifically in this business, and maybe as a GP, even better, or as an LP, either one, but it's anything come to mind when I say that you had a learning experience. The very first one I already mentioned is I spoke to one of the general partners, but I did not ask the question as to how old is your group, like how many deals have you guys done together. And in that one, the team did pull together, and even though the main asset manager, who was the main asset manager, they decided it was really not working out for them in this particular team. The other members stepped up to the plate, but
it was touch and go for a while.
It was. Okay.
It was touch and go for a while. And, it's more often apparently than not, as I'm in this business longer and longer, to know that property management companies need a lot more hand-holding. And when it's time to give them notice.
And oversight.
Yeah. When a task is assigned, you definitely have to follow up and trust but verify. So
we're into asset management now, guys, and that's what we're talking about here. Because certainly you might do the property management yourself, but most of the operators in our space hire third-party property management until they reach a level where they're big enough, if they're in a region where they can bring it in-house. But and I've got both. So you're managing the property manager, and so what she's talking about here is there are good and bad. And I will tell you, what's crazy, it's typically not the company, it's typically the players that are involved. It's the on-site manager, it's the regional manager, and how competent they are. You can have a great company, but if your wrong seats are on the bus, then that's a problem. Would you agree with that?
Oh, I completely agree. Yes.
Yeah.
It's definitely the individual more than the company. And the company is so big that they can be, individuals they hire that might not really uphold their values.
Right. And you really got to keep your finger on the pulse, especially in what's coming. Okay. Because, I think vacancies are going to increase. Inflation is insane. People, especially in the C assets, I think we're going to see some occupancy issues. And so it's just critical that on a weekly basis, at the minimum, you are staying on top of occupancy, on renewals, on default, defaults, on open, work orders and timing on work orders and so on and so forth. Those are called KPIs, guys, key performance indicators. Every business has them, and certainly what we do as a business. So I have a lot of aspiring investors, Deepa, that listen to my show. They know they want to be you. They want to do what you're doing. What words of wisdom would you share with someone that maybe has an IT background even, or if not, it doesn't matter what the background is. Actually, I don't even know why I said that, but anybody that wants to do this, has not pulled the trigger yet, what would you say to them?
Add value.
Oh, good answer.
Value to the
good answer.
Group.
I actually wrote that down because you have said to me, even before we started recording, you have said add value 4 times. Guys, the most successful people on the planet are the ones that add the most value. Okay. Without question. Okay. And when you make that your focus, success is inevitable. And so, what a great answer, Deepa. I'm really impressed with that answer. And that's why literally I had it written down here before you even brought it up, because you've said it so many times. I wanted to circle back to it because it really is the secret to success. When this business is a team sport. And so when you approach, and I've got students, they're called warriors. I've got over 1,000 around the country. They now own somewhere in excess of 90,000 units that we know of, which I'm very proud of, by the way. I've only been teaching 5 years, and most of those were done between warriors, but and so they're teams, and I tell the new ones when they come in, I say, think about, in fact, I just had a call with one right before this, an electrician who's got an electrical contracting business. I said, buddy, that is a perfect framework for the asset management side and the due diligence side of this business, because you can look at a property and know what's going on. So I said, that's what you want to bring to a team, what your experience is. And when you're doing what you enjoy, and you hire a line or partner for the things that you don't enjoy, like maybe you're analytical and you love the analysis. You're one of those mutants that you can throw in a room with a spreadsheet and throw raw meat in once in a while and you're happy, right? That's you, right? Well, not me. Okay. I can read a spreadsheet, but I don't love it. But when you get somebody like you that's super analytical together with, well, you're kind of a both though. You're outgoing as well. But some of the best partnerships I've ever seen are somebody that's analytical with someone that's outgoing. And I see that a lot because I interview a lot of operators, and when everybody's playing to their strengths, boy, again, success is inevitable. So you think about how you can add value to a team, And is that kind of what you were alluding to? I hope I didn't take it off on
It is.
okay.
No, thank you. That's exactly
Okay.
what I wanted to say.
Okay.
It is a tough gig to get your foot in the door as a GP.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
very, very difficult.
Mhm.
If the GP group is willing to give up piece of the pie of equity, we
Mhm.
better deserve it.
Yeah.
And, as a professional civil structural engineer, I thought the value I would be adding is reading through the structural reports or
Right.
going to due diligence. And surprisingly, that was not it.
Yeah.
When I said when I was trying to like get my foot in the door and trying to add value, the most obvious is my civil engineering background. And I have a stamp, I have a license, and I go, hey, I'm happy to just on my dime come up to the asset and do due diligence. And the reply I got was
structural analysis, right? Yeah,
yes.
sure. Right.
The reply I got was, oh, that's so cute. No, thank you.
Ouch. Ouch.
Because they wanted to hire somebody that
Right.
has a license that is bonded and is insured, and they did not want to take an LP's, because I was an LP at that time, an LP's word for it, even though I'm a qualified civil structural engineer. So I kept at it. I kept asking. In every conversation, I would listen for pain points and say, where can I add value? And at one point, I was talking to my GP, and they were having trouble with spreadsheets and a dashboard. And they had a pivot table. Without going into a lot of details, they had a pivot table. They were having trouble. Why? It was a tracker as to how many units were renovated. And they could not get it to work. And pivot tables are difficult to get to work to debug. And
yeah,
I was
she's talking about inside of Excel, guys.
Excel,
Okay.
right, in Excel. And I was like, okay, you know what? You might not even know the difference once I write the formulae and make it look exactly the same. And we could debug much easier than in a pivot table. And I kept on adding value. And it took me 3 years of adding value to get to a place. And the very first or a couple of times I got asked to be a GP, I did not ask what the compensation was going to be. I was like, I will take it on and pay me whatever. It might not be good advice for people out there, but that's what I did. Is I'm just ready to learn.
Yeah, no, guys, I would actually not do that, only because unfortunately you'll find people that take advantage of it. It's good to negotiate that up front. Although sometimes it's difficult, particularly if the equity raise is a component of it, because sometimes people, and we see it all the time in this, this Nashville asset, some of the people that's committed to raising certain amounts haven't gotten there yet. And so, but it is important to try to negotiate that up front, and really negotiate as much as you can up front. That brings to mind something else that just happened today and on that particular asset. But so let me ask you this. Do you have any favorite stories from this business? And it can relate to any part of the business, a tenant story, a lender story, anything that you enjoy when you're just having a cocktail talking to people about the business. Any favorite story?
Oh yeah, definitely. A whole bunch.
Okay.
So during asset management calls, a lot of things come up. And without going into details on B-class assets,
right.
If we had a tenant who really needed a property, a unit really fast because they were due and they were expecting a child, just we were like, okay, when do you need this property by? And they were like, we did not have any vacant readies. At that time, we did not have any units that were vacant that they could
ready to go.
Right. And just by being in the network, we had multiple sister assets, and we were able to get this person in one of the units before their due date.
Oh, that's nice.
And it usually, does not happen if you don't have sister assets nearby. Right. There are no vacant readies on your asset and there's no other units, then, we just say, no, thank you, but you just need to come back. No. And there are some other calls too, where we were like, hey, we had a pipe burst And there was some bad aspects of it too. You get a call saying, hey, we had a pipe burst, or the water bill this month is like $9,000 over last month. So we're like, okay, what's going on? And just digging deeper into that. It's just a variety of aspects and stories that we get to hear on asset management calls.
Sure. And guys, that's one of the things you do is you look for anomalies like that. You know, you look at the P&L, you look at the expenses, and, you know, if you see a dip or an increase, you know, that's the kind of stuff you really want to dig into. So we're winding down here, but, you know, everybody thinks that, well, I shouldn't say that, but there certainly, you know, there are sacrifices you have to make. I don't know if you have children. Do you have children?
I do.
Yeah.
I have a 6-year-old boy.
Okay. So there are sacrifices that you have to make to get into this business. Talk about that. What, if anything, you had to sacrifice to do this? Do you still have your full-time engineering role as well?
No, I don't.
You don't. Okay. You retired from that. Good for you.
Yeah,
okay.
I did. Well, it was not by choice. I was laid off during the pandemic.
Oh, wow.
And
okay. You just decided not to go back and just focus on this.
Yes.
Well, that's fortuitous, if you ask me.
Yes. And I had about 400 units as a general partner by then. And instead of just going back, I decided, I put my heart and soul into this job, my full-time job, and I really loved it. And within just like a few minutes in a meeting, I was unemployed. They were like, hey, we're deciding to shut down the whole engineering team. And I was head of engineering at that time. Wow. Without an engineering team, they didn't need a head of engineer. So just like that, it was gone. And I go, okay, I don't ever want to be in that position again because I already had this springboard. I just decided to do that and do this full time. And talking about sacrifices,
well, hold on. Before you move on, I want to hear sacrifices. But as far as I'm concerned, that was a gift.
It was.
I hope you look at it like that, because that was okay. All right. Sacrifices.
So sacrifices. We have only so much time. And we really have to, if we are deciding, so Rod, you and I, we are deciding to do this right now beyond this webinar, record the podcast. Mm-hmm. We are actively choosing not to do something else, spend time with family or, work on something. So sacrifices, how much of time do you want to spend? And instead of watching TV, do you want to read a PPM? I know it's not a fair trade, but
it actually is very informative, and I would encourage you to actually suffer your way through one. Right. In fact, I'll give you another resource. I've got a book about syndication here. Let me just grab it. My book's up here now. Guide to Multifamily Syndications. I believe you text the word syndication to 72345. If that doesn't work, DM me on any social channel, but this actually has a PPM in it. Okay. So you can see how thick it is. So it actually has a redacted PPM in it. So, but again, we're talking about adding value. These are some of the books I've written. There's about half of them. I live by that motto as well, which is why I was so impressed by the fact that you brought that up. Anyways, back to sacrifices. I think I cut you off.
So I had a full-time job when I was LP, when I started investing. And my job, I had a group of engineers that I was managing and property manager. And I have, at that time, a 3-year-old or 2-year-old, I can't remember how old my son was. And the only time I could actually sit down and concentrate, focus, read something was from midnight to 5 a.m.
Wow.
And I would get up at midnight and read, because I read through every PPM a few times, like 3 or 4 times. And some of them were 200 pages. And I was like, okay, and why until 5? Because I was the only engineer for all of North America. And my phone would start ringing at 8 o'clock Eastern time. And I am on the Pacific coast. So 5 o'clock my time.
Wow.
So,
wow.
Just to get enough sleep.
Wow. And you'd still able to spend time with your boy.
Yes, that was the highest priority. Yeah, I have only one boy. I better spend time with them.
Yeah.
And just get him situated, get him to bed. And after he goes to sleep, then I'm actively choosing not to spend time with my husband, watch TV or whatever, sit down and chat about a movie or read a book. But those have to be done. It's a trade-off. What do we want to do today to build our vision for tomorrow and the future? Yeah.
Well, I will tell you, and I talk about this at my boot camp. One of the things I train there is a weekly planning process where you time block and you prioritize and so on and so forth. It's very powerful. It's how I was able to manage 2 large companies at the same time. And I tell a story. My biggest regret in life was coming home to my kids, and I would play with them, but I wasn't there mentally. I was distracted. I was solely focused on proving to the world I was, that I mattered. And it's my greatest regret to this day. My kids will say I was a great dad, but I didn't live up to my own expectations. And, that's why, I spend a lot of time on that with my students as well, because I make that very, very clear that, what's most important. Well, anyway, listen, Deepa, it's been a real treat to meet you and to have you on the show and to have you share your wisdom and your story. And I really appreciate you coming on, spending a little time with me.
Oh, thank you for the opportunity, Gerard. I thoroughly enjoyed our time together. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Take care.
Rod, I know a lot of our listeners are wanting to take their multifamily investing business to the next level. Now, I know you've been hard at work helping our Warrior students do just that using our ACT methodology, which is awareness, close, and transform. Can you explain to the listeners how they can get our help?
You bet. Guys, we've been going nonstop for 3 years, building an amazing community of like-minded people. And our coaching students, which we call our warriors, have had extraordinary results. They've purchased thousands and thousands of units. And last year, we did over 1,000 units with our students. And we're looking to grow this group and take it to the next level. We're looking for people who want to follow a proven framework that's really step by step, and then leverage our systems and network to raise equity, to find and close deals, and to build partnerships nationwide. Now, our warrior community is finding success in any market cycle. So if you're interested in finding out more about how you can become more of our incredible network and take advantage of the incredible opportunities that are coming very soon, apply to work with us at mentorwithrod.com or text CRUSH to 72345, and we'll set up a call so you can check us out and we can check you out. That's mentorwithrod.com or text CRUSH to 72345.